Thanks for joining in the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And hope you enjoyed part one of our conversation with Bengals Assistant Head Coach and Special Teams Coordinator Darrin Simmons. We got part two for you coming up here. And it's more conversation about some of the real finer points of special teams, the detail of special teams, taking special teams players and making them capable of being starters on defense, offense. Kind of like Darrin says, graduating them from junior varsity to the varsity. He is a big factor in the overall development of the back half of the Cincinnati Bengals roster. And it's been that way for 20 plus years. Our 1 million YouTube view giveaways contest, courtesy First Star Logistics, continues with a special contest that runs until August 7th, 9 o'clock. So you have plenty of time, but don't procrastinate. Don't wait, because prizes include 2 tickets to a Cincinnati Reds game in the Boone County Bourbon Room with Dave Lapham. That would be me. 2 tickets to Cincinnati Reds game in the Boone County Bourbon Club with a celebrity to be determined later. And I know you're going to like that. It's big time. A signed Dave Lapham jersey, First Star Logistics custom backpack filled with apparel and gear, a $300 value, very nice prize, 2 $50 gas cards. Want the price of gas today? Nice. To enter, just go to the link and description below or scan the QR code. Okay, so you have an undisputed kicker in McPherson. You have a punting competition going on. You also have a snapping competition going on. Clark Harris has been around for a while, but he's going to be pushed a little bit. Competition. Talk about that one.
Well, I think it's the same thing we have going on at punter. I feel that we got probably one of the best college snappers from last year, and Cal Adamitis out of Pitt. He was the snapper at the combine. We had a lot of good conversations, leading up to the draft, and so I'm really pleased that we were able to acquire him in college free agency. And he's a talented kid too. I think it's different for college players because they play with a different formation and they play with different rules in college football than we do on the punt team. Right. In college football, everybody can release on the snap, meaning every single person on the punt team can take off into coverage. In the NFL, only the gunners, only the end men on the line of scrimmage can release. Everybody else has got to wait till the ball's punted. Mm-hmm. So in college football, that also means the snapper usually doesn't have to snap and block anybody. He can just snap it and take off. That's why they have what you hear, on college football broadcasts called the shield. And the shield on the punt team is usually made up of 3 big offensive linemen that stand right in front of the punter and block anybody that comes. Well, it's because the snappers can't snap and protect. But so again, to make a long story short, that's something Cal's going to have to learn how to do. He did that in 2018 and 2019 when he snapped under a pro-style scheme at Pitt. So it's a work in progress for him, but he comes much further along than really anybody we've had in here in quite some time in terms of being able to snap it and understand the protections and how to block. Again, but like this is Clark, though. Clark is somebody I've got a great deal of confidence in. He's been doing this. He is, there have been times when we've gone through, whether it's snapping or kicking things where, I hold my breath. Are we going to get the snap where it needs to be? Are we going to make the kick? And I worry about none of that now. I have such a high degree of confidence in players like Clark to put the ball, get it exactly where it needs to be. And even in protections, and again, he's had some things that happened this past year that maybe weren't as clean as it's been in the past. But again, he's somebody that I still have a high degree of confidence in. But this young guy is going to push him, and he's going to push him hard. So,
yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as well. But I mean, the battery, the snap, the hold, the kick has been. I mean, that's something that special teams coaches, coordinators lose sleep a night before the game over.
For sure.
Put together that battery that you have is just amazing. It really is.
Well, I feel fortunate to have the guys we've got. Again, it makes my job easier, and I feel certainly like those guys are an extension of me on the field, that they know, as a coach, it's very reassuring to know that your players are going to react exactly the way you want them to, because they've been trained to do it over, a certain period of time. So that's a very, very reassuring thing. And, again, I sleep better on Saturday nights knowing that. I don't sleep great, but I sleep better.
I hear that, Coach. I hear that. Okay, so Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Tycen Anderson, they all run sub 4.4, 4.38, 4.38, 4.36. How big an impact is that on your group?
Should be a huge one, I would think. We have guys who are very talented. They're very athletic. They're very explosive, and they're very talented. And now I just got to get them pointed in the right direction and with some rules about how I want them to react, and let them go and let them go make plays. And I don't ever want these guys to feel like they're playing with their hands tied behind their back, meaning they don't know exactly what to do or they're worried about making a mistake. I want these guys under the parameters that I put force to them to be able to react and recognize things, then react at full speed. And so, they've got the athleticism, they have the speed. Now I just got to get them pointed in the right direction. But they should be impact players for us.
As far as return game is concerned, you mentioned that you're looking for a dynamic, explosive guy back there. Any of them come to mind potentially?
Yeah, I mean, obviously having Trent Taylor back is very reassuring. Trent's somebody that, again, and it's not that I don't have confidence in Trent. Trent can make plays too.
Yep.
And he's certainly a sure ball handler, or he does a good job of making decisions and getting himself in position to handle the ball. We'll get a good shot of him in training camp, just like we'll get a good shot of Puka Williams. He was a guy that spent the entire year on our practice squad. Did not make our team last year, but he wasn't really much of a punt returner, really ever in his career in Kansas. He's more of a kickoff returner.
Yeah.
But we certainly, for him to be on our team, he's going to have to be our punt returner too. And so we've worked here, and he's worked really hard, from his pro day a year ago at Kansas to until he is where he is now. And I feel that I feel confident in him back there. In addition to one of his teammates, and Kwame Lassiter. So he's also a kid that we signed out of the football mecca of Kansas to go back there and compete too. He did do it at Kansas some. I think our quarterback has a lot of confidence in Kwame too. And again, that will certainly factor in the decision, what contributions they can make offensively, defensively. But those are three guys that are probably, leading the pack right now to be in that spot. And so we'll hopefully get a bunch of stops in preseason games, and we get great opportunities to return a lot of punts.
Do you anticipate, and I guess it's already over this year, but there are subtle changes. Sometimes there are big rule changes. Sometimes there are subtle rule changes. Is there anything that took place during this offseason that had a trickle-down effect on what you might have to do differently in terms of special teams?
Not really this season. This off season was kind of quiet relative to that. I think the league, I'm part of a group of about 7 or 8 other special teams coaches that works with the league in helping adopt new rules, new ways to, help player safety.
Yep.
It started with the kickoff several years ago and changing the formation, changing the, all the rules that are different now in the kickoff play. I think the league is now trying to explore ways to make the punt play safer. They want to cut down on what they call, lex injuries, which is lower extremity injuries, meaning hamstrings, quads, ankles, knees, trying to help curtail some of those injuries or get those injury numbers down. And we really didn't come up with anything from a rule standpoint that we felt that was going to be beneficial. There's maybe some ways in the way that we train, the way we practice, that can help that. I think the league, the people at the league, think that it's 2 completely different plays from the way that you play it in a game to the way that you practice it. Meaning you're doing things full speed in a game. We don't always do things full speed in practice.
Sure.
And so, they're looking at ways for us to help mimic that a little bit better and still keep it an exciting play. So, but we didn't really come up with any rules changes, maybe just some points of emphasis but nothing that the fan or even the players are going to notice a difference on.
Over the years, you've had some great special teams performers. I'm excluding the kickers, the specialists as such, snapper, holder, punter, but just in terms of coverage and blockers and that sort of thing in their role in special teams. Give me a handful of guys that over the years you said this guy has made major contributions for me.
Well, you're talking just over history. It could be anybody.
Over your history here with the Bengals.
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to miss out on some of these, but there have been guys that I think that names that you maybe that you'll remember, and maybe that some of the fans won't, and some of them I think we will. But when I first got here, we had a couple players. This kid named Reggie Miles was a corner for us.
Yep.
He didn't contribute much on defense, but he was a cornerback at Alabama. But he was a really, really good special teams player for us. He did he was a gunner. He played on kickoff, and one thing, you could get Reggie would go 100 miles an hour, and so he was a productive player for us. Then about around the same time, we had a receiver named Tab Perry.
Yep.
And Tab did a good job for us, not only returning kickoffs, but he was also very good in coverage. Too, and that's very unique from the receiver spot. We had another receiver, a couple other receivers that come to mind, and one that probably a lot of people remember. We had a kid named Kevin Walter.
Yeah.
Who came to us from the Giants. He was drafted, I think, late by the Giants, and then the Giants caught him, and we claimed him, and he spent part of the season on our practice squad, and then we elevated him, and really he became a very good special teams player for me. And the more plays that he made for me, which kind of opened up opportunities for him on offense. And then ultimately he ended up making enough plays on offense where the Houston Texans paid him a good contract, and they signed him in free agency, and kudos to him. That's how it should work. I feel like that, the more plays they make for me, they get better opportunities to, get bumped up to the varsity and make plays on offense. And he was one of those guys. And we had another one. James Wright was another good receiver that we had from that position. In terms of running back, I think that, the one that really sticks out to me is Cedric Pierman. He's probably the best one we've had, the best cover player, and really probably the best overall special teams player we've had. I still, in a lot of the training tapes that we use today, he's still a very big part of those plays, and a very big part of a lot of those cut-ups and reels that I show are examples of good plays. Rex Burkhead was another very good running back that we had.
Yep.
It was a dominant player. Again, I know I'm going kind of through the offense. At tight end, there's a couple guys that come to mind. Certainly Cincinnati Carter is one of my all-time favorites at tight end, because he played more and his mentality was more like a linebacker. Again, these are offensive players, so they don't spend their life or practice time tackling a lot. But these guys all played like defensive players. Cincinnati being one. Tony Stewart was another tight end that we had way back in the day. I thought that was a really, really good tight end coverage player for us.
Sure.
And so those are guys that, and again, I'm sure I'm missing somebody on offense. I know I skipped around a little bit on defense, but we've had some linebackers that have been good players. Marcus Wilkins, it was a linebacker. This is back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. That was a really, really good special teams player for us. Ended up playing good for us. We got him from the Packers, and he played good for us for a couple of years, and then went to the Falcons, I think. You hit me in a spot. Anthony Mitchell was another safety we had. Again, back around the same time that Marcus Wilkins was there, the early to mid 2000s, was a safety. It was a good player for us. Jeremy Miles was another a really good safety that we had. Dan Scuda was another linebacker that played really well for us, and he's another classic example. This is a guy who played three technique, or he played defensive line at Grand Valley State in Michigan.
Right.
And then they moved him to defensive end, and ultimately we make him play linebacker, and he plays linebacker, plays that really well for us. And we lose him in free agency, and he signs a big contract to go. I can't remember if he went right away to Jacksonville or if it was to San Francisco. It was one of those two teams, and he ended up playing for both of them. But he was one of my favorite players too. He was a tempo and a tempo setter for us for sure.
Dan Motascuda.
Yeah. So that's some of them. I'm sure I'm missing some really good ones too. That I'm sure I'm missing some good ones, and if I am, I apologize to those guys. But those are just some of the guys I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good, Coach, right off the top of your head, and it just tells you how you've developed guys. I mean, it's amazing how special teams, your core players, it's such a fluid process. A year-to-year basis. I mean, you're the one that's affected most by cut down days and final cuts, it's like, geez, I was kind of counting on that guy, or this guy or that guy. And those have to be difficult times for your roster cut down days.
It is. That's the worst day of the year for me is cut down day. Because I see these guys bust their tail. I see them put their heart and soul on the line to try to fulfill a dream to make a 53-man roster. And then, it's difficult to, after we waive some of these guys or after we release them or cut them, and for them to come to my office and for me to say it's not there yet. You're just not ready yet. It's just not there. I mean, that's a difficult thing to do, to see the heartbreak in these guys' eyes. Some of them know that they're not ready. But the other ones, there's some guys, it's very difficult to all that they put into it to try to fulfill a dream and have it not happen right then, right there. That's a tough day. But it's part of the process. And I feel like my number one job as a coach is to help develop the back half of the roster, meaning help develop these special teams guys, or, develop the third and fourth corners, or the fourth and fifth linebackers, or really the second and the third and even the fourth running backs, or the fifth and sixth receivers. I guess a big part of my job is to help develop those guys and to being good football players, where they're kind of biding time a little bit for them to develop to play offensively and defensively. So I believe that's a part of my job description. It's a big part of it.
Do you feel like this roster has got pretty good roster depth? Do you feel good about the guys you were just talking about, the back end of the roster, where you'll be able to help develop them and continue the excellence of special teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think the groundwork is there.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult this offseason for us, with our offseason being shortened because of the length of our season.
Yeah.
We didn't take the league allows you to have so many practices as part of what we call OTAs, and we didn't use all of those, which I think was the right thing to do by Coach Taylor. He backed our guys off just to give them more time to recover, excuse me, from the wear and tear of a really long season. So I agree with the way that we handled it. But at the same time, I think the ones that we're doing that to help take care of our veterans, but at the same time, it inhibits our rookies a little bit. So I think that I don't have as good a feel for where our rookies are right now as I have maybe in other years, just because we haven't practiced as much with them. But I think we'll get a really, really good. I think that'll come into shape here real quick when we get to training camp. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these young guys can do, especially.
Do you feel that when guys come to the Cincinnati Bengals and you say, I've got a special teams role in mind for you, and here's what we're talking about, do you feel like the success that you've had, the success the Bengals have had on special teams, that guys really respond to that and look at it as a great opportunity for their career?
Well, I think again, part of my job is to help them understand that too. That I tell them that for the majority, all these young guys that walk in here, not very often do we have players we have to draft to come start for us right away.
Yeah.
And so I make it very well known that you want a chance to play. I mean, you're going to have to play with me first. You have to start and be a core special teams player with me. This is different than in college football. You have, rosters of over 100. We have 46, 47 guys on game day. And I don't care who makes the 53-man roster. It's the 46 or 46-man roster is what matters to me. And that's the single most important part of roster makeup, is who are the guys that are contributing on Sunday. Because if you're one of those 5 or 6 or 7 guys that are inactive, that also means when we need someplace, when we need somebody to, for us to make a change to, if we have an injury at some other spot, the first place they're going to go to is those 6 or 7 guys who are inactive every week, and they're going to move them off the roster first. And so, I think again, it's a big part of, like I said earlier, what we do is or what I do especially is making sure these young guys, when they walk in the door, that they need to understand that special teams is a huge part of whether they're going to be able to see the field or not. And it's always funny to me too that I know I haven't done a good enough job of getting that through to some guys. If all of a sudden we go through a couple preseason games and some of these young guys aren't seeing the field, then all of a sudden they start coming to me, at the end of it, when it's getting closer to cut down day, and they try to be my good buddy or my best friend. All of a sudden, I know I haven't done a good enough job of making sure they understand the importance of it. So I really overemphasize that to them to get them to understand how important, fourth down is.
And really, I mean, you have offense, defense. There's multiple leaders at every position group. You look for the same thing, don't you? I mean, you just don't want one leader of your special teams units. You want multiple leaders, and you're getting that, aren't you? I mean, that's part of the culture. You've got a great group of guys as well.
Yeah, I really think we do. You know, one of the most important acquisitions, if you want to put it that way, that we had last season was the safety Michael Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he started off the year on our practice squad, and then you know, unfortunately, once we lost Brandon Wilson, that gave Mike the opportunity to activate him and let him play, and he is exactly what you're looking for as a coach. I mean, he is all football. He's all the time. You know, he's been to the Pro Bowl before as a special needs player. He's been extremely successful in this league. But having, you know, veterans like him to show these young guys the way and help them understand the importance of what that means is enormous for our team. You know, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, it's been great too. Our team chaplain is Vinny Ray. And Vinny Ray would also be another one of those guys that I probably didn't mention earlier as a linebacker.
Yep.
That was a big part of you know, our foundations, the special teams group. But having him as our team chaplain now, he can also help, you know, spread the importance of you know, the importance of special teams play and his mentorship of our young guys. So we have several guys that you know, that are big parts of helping leading the charge of pushing the importance and stressing the importance of the kicking game.
Yeah, that's a great point about Vinny Ray, having him part of the organization like that. Michael Thomas, I mean, like you talked about during OTAs, he's out there almost before everybody else, going through, you know, the mental rep of his alignment, his steps, how many steps he's going to take. He's doing like an imaginary count of bodies. Mm-hmm. He's going through, and I'm thinking, man, here's a dude that is serious about his process, man. A pro's pro, no doubt.
Well, and what also I think is very unique about somebody like Mike Thomas is Mike Thomas. He understands what Tycen Anderson's doing here too.
Yep,
he's there to take his spot, and I think Mike shows us such a level of maturity, and but no one understands how this process works. That when Mike is doing exactly what you're explaining, Mike's also doing that with Tycen. He's showing Tycen how to do the same thing. And this is a guy who's, you know, could be there trying to take his spot. But his level of maturity and knowing and understanding how this whole process works, part of your job as a veteran player is the mentorship and the development of our younger players. That he's right in the middle, and he's all about that. So, you know, trust me, that stuff like that doesn't go unnoticed. You know, for me as a coach, especially.
Well, I'll tell you, Coach, the way the National Football League is today, so many one-score games, so many tight football games that a lot of times are going to be decided and determined by a little special teams advantage, you know, a key play here and special teams, a key play there. The Bengals are extremely fortunate to have had you as part of this organization for 20 years. And you're, in my mind, you're the best in the business. And we appreciate you carving time for us today and giving us a lesson on what we should expect with Bengals special teams. I love it.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. It's been, I feel very fortunate to be able to be a part of an organization like we have here. You know, they're good. They're a good family. You know that firsthand too, Lapham, being around. You really never left this organization either for an extended period of time.
Right.
And it's a good organization to be around. I feel very comfortable here. You know, my family loves it here, and you know, just feel very fortunate, very lucky.
Well, it's a two-way street there. That's always good. Coach, can't thank you enough. You do a phenomenal job, and I'm looking forward to see what the all-important offense, defense, and special teams. There are 3 phases, and they're all important. I'm looking forward to see the special teams perform this year, sir.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it. But time for us to hit the ground running. The great part of what this season is, and we know this firsthand, is we don't get to pick up where we left off. You know, everybody starts out 0-0 and everybody hits reset. And you know, yes, the fact that we had the success we had last year, I think gives our players, gives our fans a high degree of confidence in us. But you know, that doesn't mean wins. And we have to go out and do the things that we've got to do. And I think we're living proof of how you can go from, you know, the bottom of the league to the top in a matter of one season. And you know, there's going to be, you know, 31 other teams trying to get to the same spot that we were a year ago.
Yep. It's very important to wipe the slate clean and start over again. And I have every confidence in the world you guys are going to be able to handle that part of it. It's key, isn't it? I mean, it's a big must. There's no doubt.
Yep, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you coming on. You're the best.
All right. Thank you.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.